Nobody could tame this wild police dog. Then a little girl did something shocking. The town's police department was known for its discipline, efficiency, and well-trained dogs. But there was one dog that defied every rule, every expectation, and every trainer who dared to handle him. Rex, a massive German shepherd, had a coat as dark as midnight and eyes that seemed to pierce straight through anyone who looked at him. He was strong, fierce, and untamed, a force of nature contained within a collar and leash that snapped under his power. From the moment he arrived at the police station, it was clear that he was different. Handlers who had worked with dozens of police dogs found themselves intimidated, afraid, and sometimes injured by his temper. Every attempt to train him ended in frustration. He would refuse commands, bark violently at his own shadow, and growl at anyone who tried to touch him. Even the most experienced trainers had to admit in private conversations that Rex was beyond their control. The officers began whispering about him, calling him the untamable beast, a living legend of the department. He was chained in the yard most of the time, pacing back and forth like a caged storm, snarling at passers-by and snapping at anything that moved too close. Months passed, and the officers tried everything. Different handlers, obedience training, patience, and even force command, but nothing worked. Rex remained a wild, unpredictable, and dangerous creature. It was around this time that Emma arrived in the story, a small 7-year-old girl with an extraordinary curiosity and a bravery that surprised everyone who knew her. She was the daughter of one of the police officers, a sweet, intelligent, and fearless child who had heard about Rex from her father's stories. Unlike the others, she was not afraid. Where everyone else saw a terrifying animal, Emma saw a living creature who needed understanding, not punishment. She made up her mind that she wanted to meet him, to see if she could reach through the storm that no adult could calm. Emma approached Rex's enclosure one afternoon. The dog was lying on the ground, muscles tense even in rest, eyes sharp, watching her every move. The officers standing nearby whispered warnings, telling her to stay back, that he could bite, scratch, or worse. But Emma ignored them. She stepped forward slowly, her small hands extended in peace. She didn't carry treats, toys, or anything to bribe him. All she had was her calm presence and unwavering courage. Rex growled low in his throat, ears pinned back, body coiled as if ready to spring. His eyes flicked from the girl to the officers and back, testing, judging, analyzing. Emma didn't flinch. She held her gaze, moving with deliberate slowness, her hand inching forward just enough for him to notice, but not enough to threaten him. The officers were stunned. They had seen countless handlers lose their nerve, but this little girl remained perfectly still, perfectly patient, perfectly calm. Hours seemed to pass in silence, broken only by the occasional low growl from Rex. He sniffed the air, unsure, curious, and cautious. And then something incredible happened. He took a single step forward, hesitant, and gently sniffed Emma's outstretched hand. It was a small movement, almost imperceptible, but it marked a monumental shift. The wildness in his eyes softened slightly. The tension in his muscles eased just a fraction. Emma smiled softly, speaking in a calm, soothing voice that carried no fear. She didn't demand obedience. She didn't try to force a reaction. She only offered kindness, patience, and understanding. Slowly, day by day, she built a routine. Every afternoon, she would approach him, extend her hand, speak softly, and wait. She let him decide how close he wanted to come, and she never rushed him. Sometimes he would pull back, his instincts still sharp and wild, but Emma never retreated. She stayed, patiently waiting, showing him that he could trust her. The officers were in disbelief. They watched as the untamable dog, the one who had bitten 3 experienced handlers and terrified the entire unit, slowly allowed himself to be near her. Rex, who had been a storm of fury, was gradually becoming calm, guided by the gentle presence of a little girl. There were moments of tension when his instincts flared up, a sudden sound, a passing cat or a shadow, but Emma handled each one with unmatched composure. She never raised her voice, never panicked, never forced him into submission. Instead, she learned his language, studying his every twitch, every growl, every shift of muscle and tail. Weeks passed, and the bond between Emma and Rex grew stronger. He followed her gaze, he responded to her soft words, and he even allowed gentle touches from her hands. Officers who had doubted her approach were now amazed. They realized that what Rex needed was not force, not commands, not obedience. He needed someone who understood him, someone who could reach the wild heart, hidden beneath layers of aggression and fear. One day, something happened that changed everything. A stranger entered the yard, pretending to threaten Rex. In a flash, he lunged, teeth bared, muscles coiled like springs. The officers braced for disaster, expecting another injury. But Emma stepped forward calmly, holding her hand out, her voice soft and steady. She had earned his trust, and in that critical moment it held him back. The dog stopped mid-lunge, hesitation in his eyes, and then, slowly, he relaxed under her influence. It was a moment of awe for everyone watching. The untamable dog had been stopped, not by a command or a leash, but by the courage and calm of a 7-year-old girl. From that day on, the impossible seemed possible. Rex became not only approachable but responsive. He began to trust his handlers more, following commands more willingly, but his deepest bond remained with Emma. She had proven that patience, understanding and courage could tame even the wildest heart. The legend of Rex was no longer just about his fierce strength or violent temper. It was about the incredible bond between a little girl and a wild police dog, a bond that transformed both their lives forever. The officers now spoke in hushed, admiring tones about the girl who had done what no adult could. And Rex, once feared and untouchable, had finally found someone he could trust completely. A person who saw him not as a danger, but as a companion worthy of love and understanding. After that first miraculous encounter, Emma and Rex's bond grew stronger by the day. The little girl's visits became a routine that no one could interrupt, and every day brought small, remarkable breakthroughs. Rex, who had once been an uncontrollable force of aggression, began showing signs of understanding and restraint. He followed Emma's gaze, responded to her soft commands, and allowed gentle touches without flinching. What had seemed impossible was now reality. A wild police dog, feared by every officer, was slowly learning trust and loyalty through the patient care of a child. The officers could hardly believe their eyes. They had witnessed countless trainers try and fail, yet here was a 7-year-old girl doing what no adult could. They stood at a distance, amazed, sometimes even shaken by the transformation they were witnessing. Emma never forced Rex. She never demanded obedience. Instead, she observed him, studied his moods, his reactions, the subtle movements of his body, and learned to speak to him in a language that went beyond words. She noticed the way his ears twitched when he was anxious, the way his tail shifted when he was unsure, and how a small lowering of his head meant he was ready to accept her presence. Each small observation became a tool, allowing her to communicate trust and patience without ever raising her voice. Her confidence, calm, and empathy created a world where Rex could let go of his fear and aggression, even if just for a moment. Over time, Rex began to anticipate her movements. When Emma approached, he no longer growled or snapped, but instead he wagged his tail cautiously, sniffed the air and waited for her hand. When she spoke softly, he tilted his head, recognizing her tone as different from the harsh commands of his trainers. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, his once wild and untamed eyes softened into a mixture of curiosity and attachment. The officers noticed that he would follow her around the yard, keeping a careful but protective distance. The change was subtle yet undeniable. The untamable dog was becoming teachable, not through force but through connection. One afternoon, an unplanned event tested their bond in a way that no training session ever had. A local man, unaware of Rex's history, entered the yard to retrieve a package. Rex's instincts kicked in immediately. He lunged, growling ferociously, teeth bared, muscles taut, ready to attack. The officers held their breath, expecting the worst. But Emma, calm as ever, stepped forward. She didn't shout, she didn't panic. She simply held out her hand, spoke softly, and waited. Rex froze mid-lunge, his wild instincts clashing with the trust he had built with her. For a tense moment, it seemed as though the worst would happen, but then he relaxed, slowly backing down. Ears flicking nervously, eyes locked on Emma. The officers exhaled in unison, astonished at the sight. No command, no leash, no restraint had stopped him, only the unwavering courage of a little girl who understood him. From that day forward, Rex's transformation accelerated. Emma's father and the other officers began to notice that he was calmer during training exercises, more responsive to commands, and less aggressive towards strangers. Yet even as he learned obedience, his deepest loyalty remained with Emma. She had reached a level of understanding that no one else could, and Rex instinctively recognized that. Their bond became legendary in the department. Stories of the untamable dog and the fearless little girl spread throughout the town. People came to see them, curious to witness a relationship that defied all odds. Children watched in awe as Rex, once feared, gently followed Emma around the yard, responding to her gestures and soft voice. Emma herself learned important lessons from Rex. She realized that true courage was not about facing danger blindly, but about patience, empathy, and the willingness to face fear with a calm heart. She learned to read his moods, anticipate his reactions, and communicate in a way that built trust rather than imposed fear. She discovered that connection could achieve what force never could. That understanding was more powerful than control, and that kindness could tame even the wildest hearts. As the weeks turned into months, Rex became not only approachable, but also an active participant in police work. While he retained his strength, agility, and sharp instincts, he now channeled his energy into protection, not aggression. He followed commands willingly, assisted in exercises, and became a trusted partner for the officers. Yet his most profound loyalty was to Emma. Whenever she was near, he would remain close, alert, and protective, as if silently acknowledging the bond that had transformed him from a feared, untamable dog into a loyal companion. The officers often reflected on the incredible change they had witnessed. What had seemed impossible, a wild, uncontrollable dog, being tamed, had been achieved, not through brute force or rigorous training, but through a child's empathy and courage. Emma's influence had proven that patience, understanding, and love could reach places where discipline and authority could not. Rex, once the terror of the station, was now a symbol of hope, trust, and the extraordinary bond between humans and animals. One evening, Emma and Rex sat together at the edge of the yard, the golden light casting long shadows across the ground. Rex rested his massive head on her lap, a gentle sigh escaping his powerful frame. Emma stroked his fur softly, whispering words of encouragement, marveling at how far they had come together. The officers watched from a distance, silently acknowledging that they had witnessed something rare and beautiful. Rex, the untamable dog, had finally found his place in the world, not because someone forced him, but because a little girl believed he could be more than his fear and anger. Their story became a legend in the town, the little girl who tamed the untamable police dog. It was a story of courage, patience, and the extraordinary power of empathy. The tale was told over and over, inspiring everyone who heard it. The wild police dog, once a symbol of chaos and danger, had become a symbol of trust and loyalty, and the bond between him and Emma would be remembered for generations. Through her actions, Emma proved that even the fiercest hearts could be softened with understanding, and that true strength sometimes lies not in physical power, but in patience, courage, and the willingness to connect with someone who others have given up on. Rex's story was no longer about his untamed ferocity. It was about the transformation possible when someone sees beyond fear and meets the world with love. The untamable dog had been tamed, not by force, but by the heart of a little girl who refused to give up. And in doing so, she showed the entire town a lesson that would never be forgotten. Sometimes the bravest heroes come in the smallest forms, and the most powerful bonds are built on trust, patience, and understanding.